the other. No, anyway, we were talking about this. We forget about all these things. When it's the 15th anniversary of the Mexican peso crisis, the finance crisis in Mexico. And Bob Rubin told me that Mexico's got 2 hours to live, and if we don't give them a loan guarantee, they're going to go belly up tomorrow. And the leadership, the Republican and Democratic Party, had previously promised to support me in Congress, and Newt Gingrich and Bob Dole, this was one that was a straight up deal. We didn't have a political fight. They came in and said, we can't deliver any votes, because there had been a poll in the paper that morning which said that by 79 to 18, the American people were strongly against my giving financial assistance to Mexico. And so they came in, we had a little debate. Bob Rubin made the case. Somebody made the arguments against it. I said, this is not close, give them the loan. And all the younger people there in the room literally thought I should be given immediate psychiatric care. I said, look, we just lost the Congress. You just got your brains beat out once. Now you're doing something that 79% of the people are against. Are you out of your mind? I said, okay, let's don't do it. Let's don't do it. Let's tell them sorry. And then a year from now, when Mexico's still reeling, when people have been hurt south of Mexico, when we have another 1 million illegal immigrants, when there are more narcotics coming across the border, when every Mexican hates our guts because they think we're greedy and selfish and uncaring about our neighbors, and people ask me, what in the daylights are you doing letting this mess develop? My answer is going to be, well, on the day I could have stopped it, there was a poll saying 79% of you were against it. And it quieted all the opposition. I said, look, people hire presidents to win for America and to win for the world, and to look around the corners, and you're either right or wrong. You got to live with it. But you can't worry about what's popular at the moment you do it, because by definition, on foreign policy, as opposed to many domestic issues, you actually have more information than most people do. And if you ask anybody to do anything who's got any inherent risk at a time when everything's not hunky-dory at home, they'll always be against it. I say that not to be self-serving, but to point out that one of the things that has held the world together since the end of the Cold War is a generalized understanding that whether we're fighting or working together, when the Berlin Wall came down and a lot of new conflicts, or ugly ethnic conflicts, it also proved that our destinies were more intertwined than ever before. This is the most interdependent age in human history. These things that were talked about tonight by General Jones are relevant today only because the world needs more of them. He talked about, our efforts to destroy the nuclear missiles and to contain the nuclear materials and getting all the nuclear weapons out of Belarus and Kazakhstan and Ukraine, and we just about secured all the loose nukes except about, I think I read 2,000 more have to be done. This conference that President Obama hosted the other day with the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense and the others, this was another step down that journey, a recognition that if there are 2,000 loose nukes in Russia that have not been secured or destroyed, that affects our security. If there are hospitals all over the world that have trace elements of nuclear materials that can be made that can be weaponized if you can amass enough up. There are laboratories, university laboratories, government laboratories, and others all over the world where this happens. So I was elated when all these people came to America with all their different political perspectives to talk about what we could do to secure the nuclear stocks of the world in power plants and labs and hospitals and these few weapons that have not been secured. We live in an interdependent world. It has three huge problems. It is too unequal, it is too unstable, And because of the changes in the climate, it is not sustainable. And so I submit to you that whether you're honoring someone like my friend Bono, who sang in the rain at my library dedication, or generals in a joint command for NATO, or pushing the Afghan mission, or a great banker who also believes that we can change the way we produce and consume energy. Every one of them, in different ways, is involved in affirming our common humanity and reacting to the realities of the time by trying to make the world less unequal or less unstable or less unsustainable. And that's why the Atlantic Alliance is relevant today. That's why the Atlantic Council is relevant today. That's why we should really care about our friends in Greece. It's a great country. They made a mistake. I remember pleading for help for Argentina when they got in trouble not long after I left office, and one of the members of the second President Bush's administration, who was a very good friend of mine, a man I respected then and I respect now, we had a heck of an argument over this. He said, "Why should we help them? They screwed up." I said, "Yeah, they did." I said, "Do you ever need any help when you didn't screw up?" I said, "Last time I checked, that's where we all need help." If we went around life perfect, none of us would ever need any help from anybody else. Of course they need, So I say that to drive home why I'm honored to be here, why I think the Atlantic Council is important, why I think the Atlantic institutions are important, why I think this nuclear cooperation is important. If you ask me my position on anything, and I mean anything, a little switch in my mind goes on, and I ask myself, will this build up the positive forces of interdependence and reduce the negative ones? If it will, I'm for it. If it won't, I'm against it. We all need a framework like that. It needs to, look, there's still plenty of room for Joe Scarborough and me to have an argument over what's the center-right or a center-left way to deal with inequality and instability and unsustainability. But we're not out there in la-la land pretending that we are not interdependent, pretending that we don't have to care about what happens to our friends in the Balkans, that we don't have to care if all of that could go for naught if Greece fails, that we don't have to care about what the ultimate resolution of this teetering relationship with Turkey is right now, that we don't have to care about these things. I think we do. And make no mistake about it, it's just like what I told all those young people in the White House that night when we had the Mexican debate. You can reach out and try to do it right, or you can decide it's too much trouble and walk away from it. But a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, for good or ill, we are going to eat our interdependence. And it was going to be a good meal. It better be positive, not negative. All it means is that divorce is not an option. That's all interdependence means. We cannot get away from each other, no matter how distasteful we might find the fact. And I say that, we gotta, we need to get over this. And I think it is profound. You're laughing, but I want you to laugh so look, the reason I'm saying, I realize I am preaching to the saved here. Otherwise, why would you show up? Unless you're related to one of the honorees and have to. But I want you to think about that, because the danger for people in this room is if you're not in public office now, you will think only in traditional terms about what the politician and the military's jobs are. And the truth is, that's why I was delighted that Joseph Ackerman and Bono and I were recognized, because we're not in politics or the military. We're in the non-governmental and the business world. And basically, the business model that large institutions follow is profoundly important in making the 21st century Atlantic world.